Hi, automotive enthusiasts. Welcome to Octane Origins, where today we're diving deep into the story of the 1993 Ducati Monster 900, the motorcycle that dared to strip away convention and ended up changing the entire landscape of street riding. When Ducati rolled this machine into the spotlight, it wasn't just another model on the showroom floor. It was a calculated gamble against the tide of the era. The early 1990s were dominated by fully fared sport bikes and chrome-laden cruisers, machines that either screamed track performance or comfort-first touring. The Monster was neither, and that's exactly what made it so fascinating. Imagine the shock of seeing a bike that wore its mechanical heart openly, frame and engine exposed like muscle under skin, defying the very idea of hiding behind plastic or unnecessary ornament. That moment marked the beginning of a new philosophy in motorcycling, one that was as much about attitude as engineering. The promise of the Monster lay in its audacity. Ducati wasn't a brand swimming in cash or stability at the time. The company needed a model that could both rescue its finances and secure its reputation in a fiercely competitive market. To do that, they turned to an idea that many insiders thought was too risky. Simplify a bike to its core, emphasize character over clutter, and make it accessible without diluting the Ducati mystique. The result was more than a product. It was a cultural provocation, an invitation to ride something that felt raw, elemental, and honest. But how exactly did a motorcycle born out of necessity manage to redefine an entire category? How did its creators transform existing components into something so distinct that riders immediately recognized it as the future? And perhaps most intriguing, why did it resonate so deeply with an audience that didn't know they were waiting for it? These are the questions we'll answer as we unravel the three interconnected phases of this story. We'll trace the Monster's roots, dissect its rise, and follow the ripples it left across the global motorcycle scene. By the end, you'll see how this stripped-down machine became not just a bike, but a symbol of identity, rebellion, and staying power. So settle in, because this journey is about more than metal and rubber. It's about vision, timing, and the courage to challenge norms. The Ducati Monster 900 is a legend for reasons far beyond its specifications, and today on Octane Origins we're going to unpack exactly why its story still matters decades later. The Ducati Monster 900 emerged at a pivotal moment in motorcycle history. Its development was not only about a bold design choice, but also about survival for Ducati as a company. In the early 1990s, Ducati was struggling with limited resources and a need for a breakthrough model that could appeal to a broader range of riders without losing its performance pedigree. The leadership turned to Miguel Galuzzi, an Argentinian designer working for Cagiva, Ducati's parent company at the time. His vision was radically simple: cut away the excess, use proven components, and build something that felt accessible yet unmistakably Ducati. Micro story. In Galuzzi's sketchbooks, the Monster began as little more than an outline of a fuel tank, a trellis frame, and an engine block. What seemed like doodles were actually a distillation of everything he believed about motorcycling. He wanted to eliminate bodywork that hid the mechanics, exposing the raw beauty of the machine itself. This philosophy wasn't just aesthetic, it was deeply personal. Galuzzi felt that motorcycles should communicate their purpose immediately, without layers of plastic between the rider and the engine. That simple sketch became the blueprint for one of the most iconic motorcycles ever made. Ducati's engineers had limited budgets, so the Monster borrowed liberally from existing parts bins. The 900cc air-cooled L-twin engine came from the Ducati 900 Supersport. The tubular steel trellis frame was derived from the 851 Superbike. Even the suspension and brakes were pulled from established models. What could have looked like a compromise turned into an advantage. By blending familiar Ducati DNA with a fresh design, the Monster became a bike that was both affordable to produce and instantly recognizable. Context digest. At the time, motorcycle markets were sharply divided. Riders either gravitated toward razor-sharp sport bikes built for track dominance or toward heavyweight cruisers built for comfort and style. Middle ground was rare, and the concept of a versatile, minimalist machine didn't have much precedent. Ducati saw an opportunity to bridge that gap, creating a bike that combined the sporty character of its superbikes with a more relaxed, upright riding position suitable for city streets. The Monster wasn't meant to compete with existing categories, it was designed to invent a new one. Micro story. When the Monster was first unveiled at the Cologne Motor Show in 1992, reactions were polarized. Some attendees were baffled. Was this a naked sport bike, a stripped-down commuter, or something entirely new? Others were instantly captivated by its aggressive stance and mechanical honesty. Journalists reported that the Ducati stand was buzzing with curiosity, and even skeptics admitted it was unlike anything else on the floor. That uncertainty would soon give way to enthusiasm once the bike hit the roads, but in the moment, the monster represented a bold, unanswered question. Could minimalism really sell? Early sales figures proved the skeptics wrong. By 1993, Ducati had launched the Monster 900 into production, and the response was overwhelming. It quickly became one of Ducati's best-selling models, drawing in riders who might never have considered the brand before. The bike was powerful enough to satisfy experienced riders, but approachable enough to attract newcomers. Its affordability relative to other Ducatis expanded the customer base, injecting much-needed revenue into the company. For Ducati, the Monster was not just a hit. It was a lifeline. Reflection bridge. What began as a sketch and a gamble had now become the financial backbone of Ducati's future, but the story was just beginning. Micro story. The Monster's appeal wasn't only about numbers. It tapped into a cultural shift happening among riders. In urban centers across Europe and eventually America, motorcyclists were looking for bikes that fit their lifestyles without forcing them into the extremes of racing or cruising. The Monster's upright ergonomics made it practical for city commutes, while its muscular stance gave it a rebellious edge. It was the kind of bike you could ride to work during the week and take on a spirited weekend blast without compromise. This duality was exactly what modern riders were craving, even if they didn't know it yet. Context digest. Ducati's marketing leaned heavily into the Monster's personality. Advertisements emphasized individuality, freedom, and the idea of motorcycling stripped to its essence. The Monster wasn't portrayed as a tool for racing glory or long-distance travel, but as a machine that represented personal expression. This approach resonated especially with younger riders who wanted performance without the pretense of track dominance. The Monster became a canvas for self-identity, a bike that could be customized and personalized in countless ways. Micro story. Custom culture played a massive role in the Monster's rise. Riders began swapping out handlebars, exhausts, and paint schemes almost immediately, transforming their Monsters into one-of-a-kind machines. Ducati even encouraged this by offering factory accessory catalogs filled with options for personalization. The Monster became less a static product and more a platform for creativity, embedding itself into the growing street fighter and naked bike subcultures. This flexibility helped extend its appeal across generations and riding styles. Reflection bridge. The Monster wasn't just a motorcycle. It was becoming a movement, reshaping what riders expected from a street machine. Context digest. Within just a few years, the Monster accounted for a massive percentage of Ducati's global sales, at times exceeding 40% of the company's output. This revenue not only stabilized Ducati, but also funded further innovations, allowing the brand to invest in new technologies and expand its reach into global markets. Without the Monster's success, Ducati's story in the 1990s might have looked very different. Micro story. Beyond economics, the Monster influenced design language across the industry. Competing manufacturers noticed the enthusiasm and began experimenting with their own interpretations of the naked formula. Japanese brands in particular introduced stripped-down versions of their sport bikes, hoping to replicate the Monster's appeal. While few captured the same balance of heritage and raw character, the trend was undeniable. The naked bike category was born, and it was here to stay. Riders embraced the Monster because it was more than just a machine. It was an invitation to experience motorcycling in its purest form. The open frame, exposed engine, and minimal bodywork created a visceral connection between rider and bike, something many felt had been lost in the pursuit of speed and aerodynamics. This emotional bond helped turn the Monster from a product into a cultural icon. And as the Monster's popularity grew, it wasn't just redefining Ducati's fortunes. It was reshaping the conversation about what motorcycles could be, setting the stage for an even larger transformation still to come. As the Monster settled into Ducati's lineup, its role shifted from a daring experiment to the foundation of a global phenomenon. The initial excitement around its raw look and affordable entry point had proven effective, but sustaining that momentum required deeper thought. Ducati understood that the Monster could not remain a single model. It had to evolve into a family that appealed to a wide spectrum of riders, from newcomers seeking accessibility to veterans demanding performance. What unfolded was not just product diversification, but a strategic reshaping of how Ducati defined itself on the world stage. Microstory: Ducati introduced smaller displacement monsters such as the 600 and 750, offering the same stripped-down philosophy at lower price points. These models opened the door to riders who admired the 900, but wanted something more approachable in terms of power and insurance costs. At the same time, larger and more powerful monsters arrived, blending the naked formula with superbike-level performance. This careful layering ensured that the monster nameplate was no longer a single machine, but a spectrum, one that could accompany riders throughout their motorcycling journey. Context digest. The decision to broaden the monster lineup reflected Ducati's understanding of its shifting audience. In the mid-1990s, younger riders were entering the market with different expectations. They valued individuality, practicality, and style as much as raw performance. By offering multiple displacements and trim levels, Ducati captured this demographic while still retaining enthusiasts who craved the thrill of a big twin. The Monster became a gateway into the Ducati brand, a role it continues to play decades later. Microstory. Parallel to its model expansion, the Monster became a staple in cities worldwide. From Rome's cobblestone streets to San Francisco's steep hills, the bike's versatility was on full display. Riders loved that it could slice through traffic with agility, yet still deliver enough punch for weekend canyon rides. In urban landscapes where motorcycles were as much lifestyle statements as transportation, the Monster stood out as a badge of authenticity. Its exposed frame and engine weren't just design features, they were declarations of character in a sea of uniformity. Reflection bridge. By expanding its reach while staying true to its core identity, the Monster secured its place as both Ducati's financial engine and its cultural ambassador. Microstory. The late 1990s also saw the Monster embraced by creative communities. Artists, musicians, and designers gravitated toward the bike, not only for its performance but also for its aesthetic purity. The trellis frame became a design icon, photographed and referenced in art and fashion circles. Owning a Monster was as much about making a visual statement as it was about riding. This crossover into broader culture elevated the Monster beyond the realm of motorcycling, placing it in conversations about style and design. Context digest. Ducati's success with the Monster mirrored larger cultural trends. The 1990s saw the rise of minimalism in architecture, fashion, and consumer products. Stripped-down forms that highlighted essential function over decoration were in vogue, and the Monster fit seamlessly into this aesthetic. Its popularity wasn't just about engineering. It resonated with an era that valued honesty in design. The bike became an embodiment of that ethos, a mechanical expression of less is more. Microstory. As Ducati began exporting the Monster to the United States in larger numbers, it found a market hungry for something different from the dominant cruiser culture. American riders, accustomed to chrome-heavy machines, saw in the Monster a European alternative that felt both exotic and approachable. For many, it was their first taste of Italian performance, wrapped in a package that didn't demand track-level commitment. The Monster became a cultural bridge, linking European design sensibilities with American street culture. Reflection bridge. By the dawn of the 2000s, the Monster was no longer a niche product. It had become Ducati's global calling card, shaping the brand's reputation across continents. Context digest. Industry competitors continued to respond, often with mixed results. Japanese manufacturers rolled out naked versions of sport bikes, but many lacked the Monster's character and heritage. European brands introduced their own stripped-down models, some successful, others short-lived. Yet even as the market grew crowded, the Monster retained a unique aura, thanks in large part to Ducati's relentless emphasis on its history and design purity. Microstory. Special editions and collaborations further cemented the Monster's cult status. Limited runs with unique paint schemes or performance upgrades became collector favorites, while collaborations with designers and artists kept the model culturally relevant. Each iteration reinforced the idea that the Monster was not static, but evolving, adapting to the tastes and expectations of its audience while maintaining its DNA. Through these evolutions, the Monster was not only expanding Ducati's market share, but also rewriting what it meant to own a Ducati. For riders who might never set foot on a racetrack, the Monster offered an authentic connection to the brand's racing heritage without demanding the sacrifices of a race-bred machine. The stage was now set for the Monster to move beyond mere popularity and into legacy territory, where its influence would ripple across decades and cement its place as one of the most important motorcycles in modern history. As the new millennium unfolded, the Monster's role shifted once more. From Ducati's savior and cultural bridge to a lasting icon that redefined what a naked bike could mean over generations. The motorcycle industry had begun to fully embrace the naked segment, with nearly every manufacturer offering some form of stripped-down performance machine. Yet the Monster continued to lead, not just because it was first, but because it remained faithful to its origins while constantly reinventing itself. Ducati carefully updated the model to meet changing tastes, safety standards, and technologies, ensuring the Monster stayed relevant without losing its core appeal. Microstory. In the early 2000s, Ducati experimented with fuel injection and modern electronics on the Monster platform. While purists feared that such updates might dilute the raw simplicity that made the bike special, these changes actually enhanced reliability and broadened its audience. Riders who once hesitated due to concerns about carburetors or maintenance now found the Monster more approachable, while longtime enthusiasts appreciated that Ducati maintained the look and spirit of the original. This balance of evolution and preservation became the key to the Monster's longevity. Context digest. Technological shifts in the motorcycle industry during the 2000s were significant. Emissions regulations tightened across Europe and North America, forcing manufacturers to rethink engines and fueling systems. Ducati used the Monster as a proving ground for these transitions, showing that compliance didn't have to mean compromise. By adopting modern systems while keeping its trellis frame and exposed engine layout, the Monster demonstrated that progress and heritage could coexist. Microstory. Beyond regulations, the Monster also became central to Ducati's push for rider safety and accessibility. The introduction of ABS braking, traction control, and refined ergonomics showed that the Monster could modernize without abandoning its identity. Riders entering the sport later in life, or those who valued safety as much as thrill, now saw the Monster as a realistic option. The bike had grown from a rebellious outsider to a mature companion, capable of adapting to an increasingly safety-conscious market. Reflection bridge. By embracing change while honoring its DNA, the Monster ensured its relevance well into the 21st century. Microstory. Cultural impact deepened as well. The Monster appeared in films, music videos, and fashion shoots, often symbolizing independence, sophistication, or rebellion. Unlike many motorcycles that lived only within enthusiast circles, the Monster crossed over into mainstream consciousness. For non-riders, it became an instantly recognizable symbol of Italian cool. For riders, that visibility reinforced the feeling that they weren't just operating a machine, they were participating in a global cultural movement. Context digest. Ducati leveraged this cultural weight by creating Monster-specific communities and events. Owners' clubs flourished around the world, with gatherings that celebrated not just riding, but the shared identity the bike fostered. Few motorcycles inspired such loyalty across borders, and Ducati's official support of these communities turned the Monster into a global family. This loyalty proved invaluable, as it created a self-sustaining ecosystem where riders themselves became ambassadors for the brand. Microstory. The Monster's 20th anniversary in 2013 underscored its importance. Ducati released special editions that honored the original 900 while showcasing modern technology. Events around the world marked the milestone, with older models paraded alongside their latest descendants. The celebration wasn't just about nostalgia, it was a recognition of the Monster's enduring relevance. 2 decades after its risky debut, it was still one of Ducati's best-selling models, a remarkable feat in an industry defined by rapid turnover. Reflection bridge. With each passing decade, the Monster transitioned from product to legend, embodying both Ducati's survival story and its cultural ascendance. Context digest. Even as Ducati introduced more advanced machines like the Panigale superbikes or the Multistrada adventure tourers, the Monster remained the anchor. It was the entry point, the accessible icon, the model that kept Ducati grounded in its philosophy of simplicity and passion. Competitors could imitate, but none could replicate the combination of history, design, and cultural cachet. Micro-story. The most recent iterations of the Monster illustrate just how far the platform has come. Lightweight aluminum frames replaced the classic steel trellis, engines grew more powerful yet more efficient, and electronics rivaled those of superbikes. Some fans lamented the loss of the trellis frame, but the continued popularity of the model proved that Ducati understood how to balance heritage with progress. Each new Monster sparked debates, but each also reaffirmed that the lineage remained alive and vital. Through it all, the Monster has carried a consistent message. Motorcycling doesn't need to be overcomplicated. A strong engine, a frame that communicates directly with the rider, and styling that celebrates mechanics over decoration are enough to captivate generation after generation. Today, the Monster is more than a motorcycle. It's a case study in how bold vision, strategic evolution, and cultural resonance can transform a single model into a dynasty. Its legacy is not only measured in sales figures or production years, but in the countless riders who found their gateway to motorcycling through its simple, audacious form. And as we reflect on its journey from a 1993 gamble to a modern icon, one truth becomes clear. The Ducati Monster 900 didn't just pioneer the naked bike. It defined a movement whose echoes will continue to shape motorcycling for decades to come. The Ducati Monster 900 story is more than a tale of engineering. It's a lesson in vision, risk, and cultural timing. When it first rolled onto the scene, no one could have predicted that a motorcycle so stripped down, so defiantly against the trends of its era, would become the very machine that saved Ducati and redefined the modern street bike. We've traced its evolution from sketchbook concept to global bestseller, from cultural outsider to cinematic icon, and from a financial lifeline to a lasting legacy that continues to shape Ducati's future. Each phase revealed a new layer of its importance. The daring gamble that launched it, the expansion that secured its place worldwide, and the legacy that keeps it alive decades later. The Monster's appeal rests on something timeless, the belief that less can be more. Riders connected with its honesty, its exposed mechanics, and its refusal to hide behind fairings or gimmicks. It wasn't trying to be everything to everyone, it was trying to be true to the essence of motorcycling, and in doing so, it reached more people than Ducati could have imagined. Its versatility, its adaptability, and its role as a cultural canvas ensured that it didn't just sell motorcycles. It inspired a movement. For Ducati, the Monster stands as proof that the right idea, executed at the right time, can reshape an entire industry. For riders, it remains an accessible icon, a reminder that motorcycling is not only about speed or luxury, but about connection, identity, and freedom. And for the motorcycle world at large, the Monster 900 is a benchmark against which all other naked bikes are still measured. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Ducati Monster 900's journey. If you've enjoyed exploring how this Italian machine reshaped global motorcycling, make sure to stay tuned for more stories of vision, innovation, and culture. Thanks for riding with us on Octane Origins. See you next time, automotive enthusiasts.